this episode is actually an impromptu episode because wow, what I saw on Twitter today. Welcome to another episode of Small Steps to Freedom. My name is Tando and I am your host for this channel. And on this episode, we'll be talking about FIRE, so the FIRE movement, right? So this is definitely an impromptu episode, and this is actually because I read an article today about the FIRE movement. It was an opinion piece around what the FIRE movement actually is all about and what it stands for, right? And I found a lot of misconceptions around what FIRE is and what it means to be part of the FIRE movement that I think are very misleading and very concerning and should be addressed, right? Which is why I'm making this video. I also wrote a whole thread about it on my Twitter account, so be sure to check that out. I'll leave a link to my Twitter account down on the description below. FIRE essentially stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early, right? So the name literally says it for itself. The whole aim of the FIRE movement is to achieve financial freedom or to achieve retiring early, or both, right? So it's financial freedom and the ability to actually retire early is what the FIRE movement aims for, right? So a few misconceptions around the FIRE movement that are actually in the article was one, the money paradox, which was an interesting one because the author of that article actually said that people in the FIRE movement are consumed by money or the thought of actually or focusing on money too much, which I feel like is really, really misleading, and it's a very broad generalization of the FIRE movement. Because if you really think about it, right, the people on social media that are talking about FIRE or are in the personal finance space and do not represent every single person within that movement. So there are a lot of people who may not even be on social media or may not even speak about the FIRE movement that actually are part of FIRE but choose not to actually speak of it. Because fact is, right, FIRE movement people are actually humans, right? They're humans, of course. So they have a lot of different interests, right? But them sharing the FIRE movement or the principles of the FIRE movement through social media is not a representation of being consumed by the idea of money or the thought of being able to be wealthy, right? It's more about being able to create a community where people actually realize is a possibility for them to retire early or to be financially free, right? So that is one really big misconception I think we should be clear on. So the other one was that there's too much focus on people saving and not enough focus on revenue generation, right? And that is just untrue. In all honesty, it's just really untrue. The FIRE movement does emphasize saving and does emphasize investing because those are really key components of actually obtaining FIRE, right? A really big component of it as well is income, and that's really that really should not need too much explanation, because if you make more money, you're able to actually save more and invest more, which means you're actually able to actually reach financial independence or actually reach retirement earlier, right? That just works like that. So the FIRE movement definitely does encourage people to actually work towards earning more income or towards having multiple income streams, not just from like maybe your 9 to 5 getting an increase in your 9 to 5, right, starting a side hustle, or maybe even starting a whole business, right? So it definitely does encourage people to actually earn more income, because that means that they'll be able to actually retire even earlier because they're able to save and invest more, right? The third one was it takes money to make money. And I know we've all heard this one and we all understand what it means, but in terms of how it was framed in the article was that you need to have a lot of money for you to actually be able to achieve FIRE, which is definitely untrue, because a lot of FIRE movement members or a lot of FIRE movement supporters essentially would not have, like, let's say, R1 million today to invest, right? They work towards that, which is where the habit building comes in, which is where the whole building that habit of like investing and saving comes in, right? Because they actually work towards those amounts. So if someone retires at age 35 and they have a portfolio of 10 million rand or like 5 million rand or whatever, right? That doesn't mean that they had X amount of capital to invest at the very beginning. It just means that they actually worked towards that amount, which is what most FIRE movement members do, because most FIRE movement members actually do work in 9 to 5 most of the time, right? And the other thing was that one thing that was just, I don't know, the one thing that was just really confusing for me was the criticism around, cool, once you reach retirement, what do you do? First of all, one, you actually do not even need to retire, in all honesty. You can reach FIRE, you can reach that amount of money or the amount or the portfolio that you actually need to be financially independent, and you can choose not to retire, right? But let's say you actually do choose to retire, right? People retiring at a young age does not necessarily mean that they do not want to work. Some people do join the FIRE movement because they hate their jobs and they want to be able to leave their crappy job, right? Which is fine. But there are a lot of FIRE movement members who actually enjoy their work or enjoy the spaces that they work in and they're content and just want to be able to have that freedom of knowing that they do not need or depend on earning a salary to sustain themselves, right? So, but if someone was to choose to retire, right, after they actually reach their financial independence, the key here with FIRE is that they get to choose what work they do, or they get to choose the employer they work for example, if they choose to work for someone. But it's that power of choice that's really important in the FIRE movement, is that power to be able to choose that, cool, actually don't want to work anymore, and you can do that. Or you want to work or be able to actually work on projects that you like that actually might not even pay enough or actually not pay at all, right? So it's literally just that power of choice. So the FIRE movement is definitely a really much broader topic than was covered on this video, but I hope this actually like debunks a few of the misconceptions around the FIRE movement, because it's a really powerful movement. But these are just like the 4 that I think are really important for us to clarify. Don't forget to give this video a like if you enjoyed this content, subscribe, comment with all your thoughts. Until I see you on my next video. Bye.